Hey, welcome to the Sounds on Vinyl show. My name is Phil Boyer, and always for this season, I've got two Vikings with me. We've got Mike and we've got Soren. Guys, how the hell's it going over there?
Oh, it's going good.
Going great.
The weather is warm here in the southern parts of Sweden and in the southern parts of the Danish people. That's him right over there. Right over there.
Over there.
Wait,
That's you. It's
what have
you.
you been drinking, Mike?
Out of my horn, but I left it alone.
Oh,
It's a family show. I can't shake my horn right now.
Oh, God.
Damn. So, okay, moving along.
All right, today we are talking about we're talking about Master of Puppets. No, that's not right. What are we talking about, Soren? We're talking about
yeah. Well, today we're going to talk about some, a very important aspect of the sound of vinyl records. Not sounds on vinyl, but yeah, we are talking about sounds on vinyl, but we are talking about how sound is created on a vinyl and how important that process is to prepare sound for actually going onto a record after it's been recorded in the studio. And we're going to show some examples of how you can actually spot on a record who cut an album, who cut the master. You won't be able to tell that on all records, but you will on some. And we're going to show some examples on what to look for and what these inscriptions mean, some of them. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I think because since the last show, this is important. You remember on the last show, I show you the Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
The Gary Moore album that was mixed up.
Yeah.
Tell you what, it's probably about 3 months ago since I bought this, and I came home and I realized it was a Frankenstein. Well, during Easter, I went back to the store just to check on used records, and I found the other Frankenstein. Can you believe it?
No.
Incredible. So I've actually now got a complete US pressing, and I'll show you with the Mirage label.
That's awesome.
And now I've got the other German pressing. So I saved the world of two Frankensteins.
Oh, there
Isn't
you go.
that incredible?
It is.
Nice.
Or people in Denmark don't listen to Gary Moore. And how sad is... Okay.
I think they listen to Still Got the Blues. And, but that's incredible. So
it is.
I was so disappointed when I got home at first, but now I'm a happy guy. Happy camper.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
For you.
Oh, I'm going to show you. I talked about also how they press vinyl in the last episode, and I mentioned something called a puck, which is the one, which is the lump of vinyl that you put in the pressing machine. Well, I've actually got a puck here because
my God.
It's also called a biscuit. Some people call it a biscuit, a puck or a biscuit. Doesn't it's the same thing, but this is actually I think 220 grams ish of vinyl. Oh, grams. Can you translate, Phil, for our American friends?
I cannot. I don't know what that would be in ounces.
Sorry. But if you say a vinyl album today, most of them are 180 grams. Well, this is
8.11 ounces.
Come again.
There you go.
8.11 ounces.
8.11 ounces of vinyl. Now, you don't see vinyl being... Sorry?
Never underestimate Google. Underestimate Google.
You never see vinyl records with a hype sticker that says 8... what was it again? 8.11?
8.11 ounces.
Ounces. You always see 180 grams, right?
Yes.
So, okay, but never mind. This is a puck used for a standard record today. Okay, so this is what they look like. And I also mentioned about how they do, how they make splatter vinyls. Well, this is a bag of vinyl pellets. It's just very, very small, like small gravel. So what they do is when this is hot, when these are melted into a puck, it's still hot and sticky, and they will just put it in a box with other pellets and go like this, and the pellets would stick. So it was just a way to just explain what I was talking about on the last show, if that was was a bit strange. So yeah, a puck.
Cool.
All
right.
Another thing I forgot to show. I had the record on my desk on the last show, but I forgot. This is a Rolling Stones album, the Satanic Majestic Rituals. It was their attempt to do a Sgt. Pepper album. It kind of failed a bit, but Michael, you'll be pleased to know that the song 2000 Man is on this album.
Oh my God, that's cool.
One. Yeah.
Yes.
No, but the reason I actually show you this is because this came out at a time when mono recordings were, most of albums were recorded in mono and cut in mono. But stereo was gradually getting more popular, because as people started buying stereo systems for their homes and all that, they had to do stereo versions of the albums too. So many albums from that day were released both in mono and stereo, and some of them were just compatible. So whatever you had, they would sound good. But a way to tell, when you were out in the record store, you can actually see here that there's a color code here, and the color is actually stuck to the inside, the inner sleeve. So they didn't have to make different covers for mono and stereo. They can just do a color code, and if it's blue, it's stereo, and if it was red, it's mono. So that was a way of, when the record is shrink wrapped in the record store, you could actually just look on the back side here and see if it's a mono or stereo release you're holding. So there was just a little fun thing. You'll see these on late 60s pressings, mainly these Decca, UK Decca releases. But you come across them now and then out there. There was just a little fun thing.
Now, is that a sticker or is that actually part of the cover?
I'm just put it on the floor. No, it's actually a hole. It's a hole that's punched.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's a see-through, and you can actually just be able to see.
Gotcha. Okay.
The blue color from the inside sleeve. So yeah.
Okay.
Fun thing. I don't have any red ones, otherwise I would have shown you one. Okay. Today's subject is mastering and cutting, and many people will not understand how important mastering an album is and how important cutting an album is. But it's very important. And I'll tell you why. Because when a band is in a studio, maybe an album like Led Zeppelin II, that's recorded in 6 or 7, 8 studios around the world while they were on tour. And every studio will have different equipment, a different setup, maybe using different microphones. They might use different guitars or drums or whatever. So mastering is actually a way of making the sound harmonic. It's kind of a way to harmonize the sound so that it sounds like it was recorded in the same room or same place or even the same time. And when you, for instance, if you sing into a microphone, you will probably hear sometimes you will hear T and S sounds when you sing, and those small sounds that we make, or maybe a plectra hitting the strings in the wrong way. All of these small imperfections, they use the mastering process to get rid of all that. So it actually sounds like They will get rid of small mistakes and all that. So mastering is really important for an album to harmonize the sound and actually punch up the sound, because it's also in the mastering process that the baseline sound volume is set. Because there's a huge difference in listening to a recording in a recording studio and then actually putting that sound onto a record. That's a huge process actually, and the process starts with mastering. So when the mastering is done, you end up with a master tape from the studio. And in the old days, today everything is recorded on hard drives and whatnot. But in the old days, it was on analog tape. And the mastering process was actually when the album is mixed, it was time for the mastering. So the mastering tape, the master tape, was the actual finished product from the studio, and that had to be okayed by the band, by the artist, or by the record company. They listen to it and say, okay, this is it. All the hard work we've done in the studio, this is the actual finished product. Now, a master tape is, let's say, it's actually the closest that you can get to the sound that was in the studio. But again, to be able to put that sound onto a record, that's another process. And what I explained about pressing plants and mastering studios and everything in the previous episodes, the master tape will be copied into several copies and distributed to various pressing plants. Because when you have to press 1 million copies of an album, like you did, very normal in the 70s, there was no way that one pressing plant could do all of this. So they had to have different pressing plants working at the same time. So the cutting of the master album would usually be done at the same place that mastered the audio. So I have an example, and this is, I'm going to start because it will make sense. It will make sense. Okay. This is, of course, Led Zeppelin II. And I'm such a nerd that I put a little sticker here. It says USRL. And I'll explain what that means. Because this is considered the holy grail of Led Zeppelin albums. Because it was mastered by a guy called Bob Ludwig, who worked for Sterling Sound, which was a mastering studio, still is a mastering studio in Los Angeles. Now, Led Zeppelin had, this is a year after the debut album from Led Zeppelin came out, and they were getting really big in America. So the Atlantic Records, the record company, said, okay, now we're going to go all in on the next Led Zeppelin album. Let's make it sound incredibly good. So they asked Bob Ludwig to cut the first master, the master disc of the album. So Bob Ludwig is both a mastering engineer doing the audio, and then he is also a cutting engineer, so he can cut records as well. So he was asked to cut the first batch of Zeppelin albums, and he also, his name is Bob Ludwig, and Bob is always short for Robert, so his initials is RL, Robert Ludwig. Oh, it's on the outer sleeve there, RL. So when he cut records, he used to put his initials in the run-out groove, because mastering engineers were almost never credited on the record sleeve. So you won't be able to read anywhere that Bob Ludwig mastered this record. And that was very common for mastering engineers. They were never credited for their work. So somebody started writing their initials or name or a tag or something in the dead wax, just to sort of, say, this is my work, a bit like a carpenter or whatever. So Bob Ludwig cut the first version of the Led Zeppelin album, added his RL initials in the dead wax, and then it was pressed. They did a test listen first in the studio, and everything was fine. They said, this sounds really good, let's press it. So they did. They pressed a number of albums. But then the president of Atlantic Records, his name was Ahmet Ertegun, his daughter got a copy of the album. And she apparently played the album in her room. And suddenly she yelled at her dad, saying, "There's something wrong with the album." And he came in, and the dynamics. And now I'm getting into what mastering actually means, because if you listen to an album that sounds incredibly good and lots of bass, lots of power, this is actually something that's done in the mastering process. So she played the album, and the arm, the tone arm, just fell off the album. It just sprang off. I don't know what the exact word is, but it did, because the sound was so massive. Of course, it was a very cheap record player. It was one of those plastic record players, I think. Yeah. But it actually made the arm fall off. So the president there, Ahmet Ertegun, he went ballistic, and ordered all the copies to be withdrawn, and ordered a recut of the album. So he actually sacked Bob Ludwig for not doing his job properly, and they got another guy in to do a remaster of the album. So and then it was released again, but this time it was also US, but it says GP, and that was a guy called George Pirro who did the recut. So if you look at these, they look exactly the same. And they are, for most part. The only way to tell is to look for the initials, Bob Ludwig's initials in the dead wax. And if it says RL, it's the right one to have. But if you take the other one and it says AT-GP, it means it was cut by George Pirro at Atlantic Studios. So that's a way to tell. And of course, because of that story, because of Bob Ludwig's involvement, and because of what the album could do to cheap record players, it's just become one of those, it's just one of those holy grails today, because a lot of people will seek out this exact copy. Because
I'm one of those people.
You're one of them.
Yeah,
they didn't.
It's on my bucket list.
They didn't press that many of them because it was withdrawn very quickly. Mm-hmm. But they're out there, and you will find them if you really dig. I don't know the exact value. It's one of those things that the RL cut is actually a lot more expensive in the States than here in Europe, because I've seen a few of them out digging, and they're not very expensive. I mean, they're not more expensive than other copies of Led Zeppelin II, but I think maybe it's because the sellers don't know what they're actually selling. I think that's probably the best explanation. Because in America,
you've listened to this album, so you get to experience Bob Ludwig's mastering. Yeah. So what's the difference?
I would say,
according to you,
I would say that the George Pirro is no slouch. It sounds really good as well, but there's much more. It sounds heavier. There's more depth, more dynamics to the Bob Ludwig mix. Definitely, it's not like you're blown away. I mean, maybe my ears are just not good enough. But I recently I was out doing a talk, a vinyl talk, in a hi-fi shop not long ago, and they had $100,000 equipment. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen, and we actually played the RL at full volume, and that was amazing. But you really, the better equipment you have, the more you'll get out of records. Yeah. Of course, but that just sounded awesome. Let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds good on my own
Cool.
stereo, definitely. But listening to an incredibly expensive setup, hi-fi setup, and huge speakers, it was amazing. But it's a great cut, definitely a great cut, and worth seeking out. And if you find it, buy it.
Yes, I will.
It's the only advice I can give. Now, some people will collect Bob Ludwig cuts only. I mean, if they see an RL inscribed in the dead wax, and you'll see that on many records, it doesn't mean that all of them sound as good as Led Zeppelin II, but it just means that he also did it. He also cut the album. And I have a few. The Thin Lizzy, Johnny the Fox, the US pressing is also an RL cut. Let's see, Rush. For you, Mark.
We go.
Oh my God!
You feel
it.
Yeah, because if you open the gatefold at the Rush cover here, you'll actually see that it mastered by Bob Ludwig. It actually says here in the credits. But this is of course from '81, and up in the '70s they started actually doing this, writing the credits of who mastered it. But in the '60s nobody bothered about it, and that's why they started adding their own initials to the dead wax. This is actually a Scandinavian pressing. But it has RL in the dead wax. So what does that tell us, Mike?
Oh,
yeah.
He was involved in doing
it
with
but he worked
in the Swedish
United
pressing
States.
plants. Yeah,
he worked in the United States, and this is.
But it's sent over the lacquers, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
They
to
sent
Sweden.
over the stampers.
Yes, stampers.
Yeah.
Yes, stampers.
Stampers from the US were sent to Europe and pressed here.
Yes.
So that's why you can see RL's initials in a Scandinavian pressing.
Oh yeah.
Fun thing.
Yeah.
Now,
and you got something for me? You got something for me? No? Oh, there you go. Oh.
And this is
there
also
you go.
This is also an RL cut.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Michael, I don't know if you have it, but I will tell you.
No.
I will tell you. This is the best sounding version. I have 4 different versions of this album, both from the '70s, one German, and I have some reissues. This is incredible, and I really mean that. You can actually tell the difference.
Yes.
So US RL pressing. This is the first edition.
I think it's even better than the Japanese one.
Yeah.
Actually,
do you have it?
Oh yes, of course.
Of course. Oh,
yes.
Good man.
Two copies.
Actually, I'm tipping over my PC here. Okay, another one we showed last week was, or maybe a couple of shows back, was Back in Black. The US version is also an RL cut, and as you probably know, this sounds incredible. Lots of dynamics, lots of very very clear separation of the instruments. You can really hear what's being played. And all that is actually done in the mastering process. A bad mastering can fuck up any record, and a bad cut can fuck up a good mastering. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's really important. So the way it was recorded and produced in the studio, if the mastering guy is not able to do a good job, and the cutting engineer is not able to do a good job, it can actually ruin a perfectly good album. Now, the cutting engineer's task is not just to press a button and then have a coffee and wait until the cutting machine, the lathe, is finished, because his job is actually to work out exactly how long is one side going to be. I mean, how much music are we going to put onto one side, and a few minutes can actually make a huge difference. So for a normal side, the best, the most optimal amount of minutes is actually around 18 minutes to get the optimal sound of a record. But sometimes they will press 22 minutes, 23 minutes on one side. And that actually is a challenge to most pressing engineers, because they have to then adjust a lot of things in the sound and the dynamics to make it to actually make all those minutes fit onto one side. Mm-hmm. Because it matters how wide the groove is. It matters how much bass you're putting on, because all those aspects will influence the nature of the groove. So the more minutes, the more you have to actually compress and squeeze the sound to be able to fit it in, and all that is a mastering engineer's task. So what am I going to show you next? Oh yeah, there's another thing that you might also encounter. If you heard of the half-speed masters, you heard that expression? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because normally it takes the cutting lathe is actually going as fast as a record will be played. So it cuts at the same speed that the record is played. So it takes about 18-20 minutes to cut one side of an album when the music is playing and all that. But if you do a half-speed master, you are actually halving the speed on the cutting machine and also on the music played. Because when you cut at half speed, some people say that the lathe will be more precise in cutting. So some people say that it makes a record sound better, because when you then, if it's cut at half speed and you then play it at normal speed, everything will sound fine. It's just when they cut it, that the music is played at half speed and the machine is evolving at half speed. But half speed masters are sometimes, this is the Genesis Selling England by the Pound release from a few years back, and it says here half speed mastering. This is something that record companies usually want to market on reissues, that it's half speed mastered, and sometimes you will see in the deadworks it says half speed mastered by somebody. This was cut at Abbey Road in the UK by a cutting engineer there. No, it doesn't say who it was. I can't remember. It doesn't matter anyway. But half-speed masters are usually something that's marketed heavily by the record companies. Now, another legend in the cutting world of cutting engineers he's still alive, but he was very active in the 70s. A guy called George Peckham, also known as Pokey. That was his nickname. But he used to cut a lot of records for the big 70s artists in the UK. We're talking Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, you name it. He used to cut records for all those guys. But he was, and now we're getting back to Monty Python. I mean, I've mentioned them a few times on the show, but this, I gotta mention this because this is so special. Now, Monty Python was going to do an album called Matching Tie and Handkerchief. Looks like this, in 1973. And they said, we want to do a 3-sided album. The first single album with 3 sides. And how do you do that? Well, Pokey came up with the answer, because on one side he actually managed to cut 2 separate grooves right next to each other. I mean, so this album has 2 lead-in grooves. So depending on where you put the needle, it will sound different. So there are actually 2. Well, in total, it's about 18 minutes, I think. 18, 19 minutes, like a normal record. But when you have 2 grooves next to each other, you'll have like 9 minutes maybe per groove. But it's so difficult to see that you'll only experience it if, let's say, you play the album and you accidentally touch your record player, so the needle will jump in the next groove, over to the next groove, you'll actually hear something completely different. So this is the first album with 3 sides, and that was Pokey who cut that. And you will see Pokey's initials or his name. You will never see his real name. He will always be called Pokey. He might write Pecko. He might write a Pokey Prime cut. Whatever. Anything that the sort of remotely sounds like Pokey, you'll know it's him. And he also cut the Deep Purple Burn album, the UK release. I've got a Made in Japan, also with Pokey. I think one of the sides says Pecko Duck. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff. But if you see that in the Dead Wax, you know who cut it, and you usually find it on UK releases because he worked in the UK. So if you find it on an American pressing, say, or a Scandinavian pressing, or whatever, it means, of course, that the stampers or the master that was cut was shipped outside the UK and then processed into records there. So yeah, another one I'm going to show you is Thin Lizzy's Bad Reputation.
Oh man,
now, this is the US pressing, and if you take this out, you will, or I don't think you will be able to see this, but down here it says Master Disc and it says GK. And now this is a guy called Gilbert Kong who worked for Master Disc. So you will also find RL cuts with Master Disc RL. So this was actually a colleague to Bob Ludwig called Gilbert Kong. Bob Ludwig used to work both for a company called Sterling Sound, and then later on Master Disc. So that's why you'll see Master Disc RL or Sterling RL, but it's the same guy. Okay. Moving on.
Where was Master Disc located? Because I mean, Sterling was New York, right?
Sterling was New York, and I think Master Disc was Los Angeles. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why they worked, East and West Coast in the US to cover the whole market, because there were, many pressing plants in the New York area, many in on the West Coast. So that's probably why they had more mastering studios doing cuttings.
Yes.
Okay. Now the next one I'm going to show you is Who's Next by The Who, and this was released in '71 on Track Records. This is a UK first pressing. Now, if you look in the Dead Wax here, you'll see the name Bilbo written, and we're in Lord of the Rings territory here. But Bilbo was a guy called Dennis Blackham, also a UK cutting engineer, and he used to tag his work with Bilbo all the time. So you might see, you'll see Bilbo. Maybe you'll see some different word next to Bilbo or something. But if you see Bilbo, you know it's Dennis Blackham. So it's a fun way to actually track a record to the beginning, to the origin. I mean, who did this? Who was the engineer behind this? And again, I'm going to take the carpenter metaphor in, because it's nice to know that it was a person who did it, and not just some machine or a robot. It was actually a real person who had to make choices. And that's why records are so fun, because there are, in the whole process of making an album and recording music, people are involved, and also, of course, in the cutting of an album. It's nothing is what you say. Everything has to be decided. How something should sound, and the quality assurance and all that is people. Very fun.
Cool.
Oh, the first UK edition of Led Zeppelin III. I don't have one of those, but if you look in the Dead Wax, you will see the words, and I've written them down because I can't remember. It says, "Do what thou wilt," and on the next side B, it says, "So mote be it." That was actually written in the Dead Wax, and that was a quote from Aleister Crowley, that Jimmy Page was a huge fan of that. I don't know what was Aleister Crowley. What do you call? What a wizard? A weirdo? Some satanic? I don't know what it was. Some guy.
Yeah.
Wizard, weirdo, satanic dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. But that was a quote for him. But the cool thing, this is one of my favorite albums, Opeth, Blackwater Park. Now, this is a reissue on music on vinyl. A reissue that came out in 2010, I think. It's a double album. But the fun thing is, as a homage to Cutting Engineers and to Led Zeppelin III, you'll actually find on side A, it says, "Do What Thou Wilt." Side B, it says, "So Mote Be It." And on side 3, it says, "Pecko Duck." And on side 4, it says, "Bilbo."
No.
So,
oh man!
I mean, and you got to know this stuff to actually get it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So when you look at the Deadwax, you say, "What the hell is this?" But if you know the backstory, because they are, of course, Opeth are vinyl fans themselves, and they're really vinyl nerds. So putting these salutes or whatever you call them in the Deadwax, it just shows you how nerdy they are. But now you know the story and what it means and why they're there. But it's a good fun.
Cool.
You won't find it on the original Blackwater Park release. It's only on the reissue here. But it's a fun thing.
Cool.
Now, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Look at
there
this.
You go.
Look at this.
Oh, there you go.
Right. I have 2 copies of this. One is a UK release from '82, and the other one is a Norwegian, Scandinavian cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely the same album, same music, but of course with different labels, because the UK one looked like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think also the American one looked like this.
Yes.
This was, and if you look at the Deadwax here, it says Tone, Tone, and that's a guy called Tony Bridge who did this cut in the UK. But if you look at the Norwegian one, it says Finsson, written in with handwriting, etched, and this of course has the Casablanca labels. I don't know if the light is a bit dodgy, but okay. But it says Finsson here, down here. You won't be able to see it, so it won't matter. But two different records released at the same time. No, 2 of the same records. That was what I meant to say. Released at the same time, but cut in 2 different countries by 2 different people. So it's not the same. It's not exactly the same sound you will get on these 2 albums, because the sound is whatever. The cutting is an interpretation in a way of the mastered sound, if you know what I mean. But Ivar Finsson, who cut this, he worked in Oslo at the Rosenberg Studios in Oslo, and almost every Norwegian pressing from the 80s and onwards he did. So you're either looking for his surname written, or just an F. If you see an F in the Deadwax, you'll know it's him. Finsson is called. Yeah, legend. Okay, let's see. Do you have any questions? Because I'll just see what I have up next.
I'm thinking
just keep them coming. Just keep them coming.
This gives justification for having multiple copies, different copies of the same record, because they're all a little bit different sound.
Oh, definitely. You're helping out. I'm feeling
See?
Oh, I've landed now.
You feel so included, Mike.
Oh, feel so included. I can justify all my 15 copies of Kiss Alive. I can justify.
We understand you, Mike. You're among friends.
Thank you so much.
You're among friends here.
Thank you. But all kidding aside, there is a difference. Even I'm not like. I'm like you, Soren. I listen to. I haven't got like the most expensive equipment ever, but there is a difference when you listen to a great sounding master from my favorite is of course Robert Ludwig, but also Bernie Grundlesson, who was a fantastic mastering engineer, and the studios. I mean, I bought cut from the original master tape, a burn that was re-released from like 2018 from the Abbey Road Studios, and that sounds so amazing. It's not completely different, but there is more depth to it, and you can hear all the separations if you listen in headphones and so forth. And I just love that album.
It's funny because I think one of the main challenges that cutting an album, for cutting engineers, one of the main challenges is they have to cut a record that's going to sound good on a cheap system as well as a $1 million system. And I'm sure most of them will do the best work they can. But unfortunately, most people won't be able to hear how good an album actually can sound because people play on really crappy stereos. So, I mean,
I know.
And it must be very unsatisfying in a way of educating yourself for years and learning all the tricks and be an incredible mastering engineer. And then just know that people will listen on their iPhone headphones or on a very, very cheap stereo. Because they will never actually hear the potential of a really good album. But that's just the world, I think. That's just the way it is. Yeah.
But maybe now when we talk about it, when we talk about it and we show these records and talk about...
We are influencers, Mike. We are influencers.
Yeah.
Of course.
We are vinyl influencers. I like that label.
Yeah. Good.
I'm going to use that. I'm a vinyl influencer. Crying out loud.
Awesome.
Good. Well, the final thing I'm going to show you, I think,
all right,
is...
the final thing before we draw the names to the winners for the contest from last week.
Oh, yeah.
People are sitting on edges out there.
Oh,
we know you've been waiting for that.
On the edge of your seats. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just a minute more. Now, this is what I'm going to show you. This is the first Dire Straits album. Killer album in so many ways. I love this, so much. But a line of a record label called Original Masters. They're called the Mobile Fidelity. And if you want to splash out $100 for an album, this is what you need to get, because they're quite expensive. But for most part, even if it's a reissue, let's say this came out a couple of years ago, but it was recorded in 78, I think, 77 or 78, I'm not really sure. But this record company will always seek out the best masters, the best audio source available, maybe even the actual first generation master tapes. So you will get the best sounding audio source available, and then they will only use top of the class mastering cutting engineers, and everything is just quality all the way through. And they will not all pressing plants are allowed to do pressings for these. You've got to be specially picked out. You have to pass a test and all that to be able to press these records. This was cut by a guy called Kevin Gray, and he's one of those rock stars in the cutting world of cutting engineers. So you can get T-shirts with his name and all that.
Oh, for real?
No,
Man.
I'm just joking, Mike. Okay,
wow.
No.
There we go.
I'm just joking. But you will actually, if you own a really good system with good speakers and all that, this just sounds incredible. Really, it's so good, so detailed, so much, so dynamic, and just a great sounding record. Now, I've never heard a bad sounding Dire Straits records, because they were, they are recorded and produced so well that you'd be hard pressed to find a really bad cut of a Dire Straits album. But this is one of the absolute top ones to go for.
And of course, the mastering engineer has merchandise, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah.
Would you be surprised if it wasn't
No.
American? Would you be surprised? I'm sorry, Phil, but would you be surprised that the motherfucker had some? I'm a big fucking rock star. I'm a mastering engineer. I got a T-shirt with my name on it. Would you be surprised, Soren?
No.
Me neither.
No.
I would buy into that shit all the time.
Absolutely. Okay.
So, are
the
we
big
doing
finale.
it? The big finale.
The big finale. All right. Drum
All
roll.
right. Drum roll. So what are we doing for? Oh, there you go. That was great.
Real mastering engineer, Phil.
Oh,
I am. I have my own merch too, by the way. So, for those of you who don't know what the heck we're talking about, we had one of Soren's buddies, who is a musician. He is into the electro music genre. Mm-hmm. His name is Code Electro, or at least his artist name is Code Electro.
Yeah.
And he was giving away 3 albums. And you needed to go to our Facebook page and answer a simple question. And what was the question, Soren?
Do you want it?
Do you want it? And lo and behold, a shitload of you wanted this album. So
they knew the answer.
Yeah, they knew the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I got 3 names here right in front of me. And I'm just going to go in no particular order. The first one is Henrik Moberg Voss.
Henrik.
Tillykke.
Tillykke.
All right. And then we got Derek Lasky.
Derek
Lasky.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
There we go.
And the last one is Jesper Ravn Larsen.
Jesper
Ravn Larsen. Tillykke. Cool.
Right.
So that's the 3 wins. There you go. All right. Good work. You see?
There we go.
Too much, Phil.
Soon these guys will be wearing merchandise too.
Yeah.
Enough with the applause, man. So yes.
This is today's, we're recording this, but this will go live on a Thursday. So
yes.
If I say today, I mean Thursday when this goes live, okay? But you will be contacted via PM by one of us, either Mike or me, and we just need your address so that we can ship out the records to you. So and they will probably be shipped out next week, during next week. So
and
congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, and for you that listened without the confusion, it's today. Because when you listen to this, it is today. Yeah. It is Thursday. And you're listening to this show because it's get released on a Thursday. So we'll contact you. And
unless you're hijacked our recording here.
Yes. Bootlegged it. Printed on vinyl exclusively for you. Maybe.
Cool.
Maybe. You never know.
Excellent.
Never know.
Excellent. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you to everyone who knew the answer and participated. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, and a special thanks to Code Electro for crying out loud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh my!
Thank you
so much. Oh,
yeah.
Martin is his name. Okay, Martin.
Incredible, Jessica.
Morning Code Electro. Thank you for being a part of the Sounds on Vinyl podcast. And
that's right.
A cool thing
you go.
a cool thing would be when the winners receive their prize. Okay,
Oh,
it will be great if they post a picture with them and the album, or just the album spinning on the Sounds on Vinyl page.
Oh, that would be good.
Just to let us know that it has received, its final destination.
Yeah. All right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be
awesome.
Awesome, yeah.
And maybe if you post it on Instagram, make sure to tag Code Electro and Sounds on Vinyl too. That'll be nice.
That'd be nice. Really nice.
So maybe we'll get 3 tags. Isn't that incredible?
Oh man, that would be something.
That would be something.
Right there.
Yeah.
All
Beautiful.
Right. Cool.
Good.
So that's it.
That's
it.
All right.
That's it. That's the last episode for the season. It's our last one with Soren, and that's it. It's very sad.
Yeah.
It's happy because we had the giveaway, but now we're sad because it's the last episode with Soren.
Yeah. Thank you so much, my buddy. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you. This was awesome.
This
whole season was epic.
I just got to say thank you to you two guys, of course, but also to all the people who've watched it on YouTube, listened in on the podcast, and it's been incredible. There was I've had so much cool feedback from people. I'm not saying around the world. It sounds a bit. Big. But a few of my friends have commented that it was fun. It was good fun. Yeah. So I'm very glad.
So you're printing merch now, all right?
I am.
Yeah.
But I have tons of merch.
Yeah, tons of merch. going on the road. What are you talking about, man?
Well, speaking of merch, you got a book, so tell everybody where they can get a copy of your book.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want a copy of the book, and of course, still it's in Danish, so sorry about that. But maybe you'll be able to enjoy the book, as despite you not being able to read Danish.
Oh yeah.
But if you want a copy of the book, just go to my Instagram page, Alt om Vinyl. Or my Facebook page, which is also called Alt om Vinyl, ALTOMVINYL. And just PM me. I can ship everywhere, and I still have a few copies left here at home, so I can do it very quickly.
Yeah, we could maybe put a link in the description, Phil. So we'll put a link in the description so people will find it easy.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
It's been a huge pleasure, guys. So much fun.
And for us too,
indeed.
Man.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Great.
It's been awesome.
Nerdy stuff as hell, but it's all in good fun.
All in good fun.
It is.
Fun. Yeah.
All right. And until next time, later.
Yes. Keep your eye out for info on season 7.
Oh yeah. All right.
Season 7. So, all right. Until then, later.
Later.